Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Got a brand new camera setup here. Hopefully, the quality of the cam is a little bit better now. And hopefully, nothing with AMD encoders acting up again. So far, it seems pretty good, though. Let's see. Yeah, it seems pretty okay. So far, it seems pretty good, though. I don't know about the quality. This still seems like the quality is a little bad. Yeah, is it pretty okay? Is it just my playback that's having the issue? I don't know about the quality. This still seems. Yeah, I think it's just a playback. That's good. At least we know that something's working. Late again? What do you mean late again? Yeah, what's up? What's up, dude? What's up? Dude, I got a amazing topic today. So you guys know how there's been this narrative out there saying how China's rise is a peaceful one. Well, just like when a Pokemon tries to perform certain moves, but there's a chance of it failing, China tries to peacefully rise, and oh no, it failed. Welcome, everybody. So I don't know if you guys heard this on the news, but basically, the new Japanese prime minister, her name is Sanae Takaichi, right? She was saying some stuff about the CCP, in particularly regards to Taiwan. She basically, here, I'll pull up the original statement. She basically says that Japan, in the case of an invasion in Taiwan, will probably step in to help. So she basically said this. She said that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could amount to a survival-threatening situation and trigger a potential military response from Tokyo. So obviously, you know, this is a so-called red line for the CCP, right? And then the Chinese ambassador to this is in Osaka. So not the actual ambassador to Japan, but the consul general to Osaka tweeted this out on X in Japanese, and it paraphrases essentially saying that they will cut off the head of the Japanese prime minister. So in turn, this whole thing escalated because Japanese X users and just Japanese internet users in general started to get really mad at the fact that the Chinese consul is literally threatening their prime minister and trying to, you know, chop her head off. And this happened over the weekend, right? And they were initially trying to like downplay it, like the Chinese side. They didn't really offer any response to this, but then over the next few days, essentially, let's see here, the Chinese Foreign Ministry started to come out with a very aggressive statement. In this one, it reads, the Japan, the daring to intervene in the Taiwan Strait by force will constitute aggression, and China will strike head on. Essentially, they're just saying that, you know, like how, like, don't you dare to say anything about Taiwan, like that's that's whatever. And so the whole wolf warrior diplomacy is back. Now, we thought that was over, right? And then we have more people tagging on. So like this whole China is a peaceful rise thing is clearly not the case anymore, because they're literally saying that they will just bash and, you know, strike anyone head on. So they're not peaceful. And then here's Hu Xijin. Hu Xijin, if you guys don't know, was a former editor-in-chief for the Global Times, and he's basically like the like a huge CCP barking dog. And he says that the new diplomatic conflict between China and Japan was entirely instigated by Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. If Japan dares to expel Chinese diplomats, China will inevitably retaliate. Well, then Sanae Takaichi is an evil witch. So he calls her an evil witch, which, you know, this is like, I think, slightly better than threatening somebody that they're gonna, you know, kill them. And I mean, here in the West, if you threaten to chop the head off of somebody, I believe that counts as terroristic threats, which is different than an act of terrorism, but it is still a criminal charge that you could be put in jail for, right? So you're threatening to, like, you name this person, you physically threaten them, or you post this threat somewhere online. That is considered a terroristic threat. He wasn't the by far the only one though. Here is Chen Weihua. So Chen Weihua, let me just put this up here. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll put it up. Chen Weihua says in Chinese, saying that he supports the general counsel. His name is Xue Jian. He says to the walking dogs, or the American barking running dog. I guess that would be the better word. American running dog Sana Takeichi crazily instigating the reaction of 1.4 billion Chinese people. For the reaction, who dares to stop the unification of China, they will be met with a dead end. So, that's again another journalist coming out to threaten the Japanese. So now, obviously, the Japanese people are saying that we should deport the general consul because, like, you're literally threatening our prime minister, right? You have other, like, CCP propagandist who basically says that, whatever the statement said by the general consul was completely in line with the Chinese foreign policy towards Japan. And yeah, like, so the wolf warrior craziness is back. Hello, everybody. You are Japanese. You don't know what's going to happen. Personally, I really don't think that this is going to escalate beyond, like, the words. So I hope, like, it doesn't escalate beyond the words, because I don't think it's beneficial for Japan to have anything right now. So here's what I think, right? The new prime minister has only been in office for a month or two. At this point, she has a really high support in the poll numbers among the Japanese people. But I think if this escalates, there's no telling what the CCP is willing to do. For example, remember when Canada arrested Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei CFO, and what the Chinese response was that they arrested two Michaels, two Canadians in China, right? So in case, let's say, the prime minister expels the general consul, well, China's reaction could be that they will arrest or expel certain Japanese nationals in China, or they will literally arrest them for certain things like espionage or whatever financial crime situations. And so this in turn creates a lot of problems for Japan, I think, because now you're risking the lives of Japanese nationals, and I don't think that the current Japanese prime minister wants that so early on. So I personally think this won't escalate beyond words, but we'll see how it goes. But it also, on the other side, I think it does show that if this really, really becomes a diplomatic situation, I think it'll actually help the Japanese to, for example, in terms of the national security side. What if they decided that, because I know there is an intention within this administration in Japan that there could possibly be something like a amendment to the constitution, right? So that right now the Japanese self-defense force could possibly become a full-fledged defense force within, like, the Japanese, a full normal Japanese military. In that case, that's actually, in my opinion, one of the objectives of the current prime minister. Perhaps, like, it is for the sake of national security, because what happens, if they threaten to chop the head off of the Japanese prime minister, what happens if they actually does? I am reading YouTube chat, by the way. Somebody just keeps saying China, China, China. Well, they did kidnap the two Canadians, but it was called arrested for espionage charge. So what I found out was that apparently this guy, the Zhejiang guy, the general consul of Osaka, he had also threatened to chop the head off of Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of War in the United States. So here he says this. This is auto translated, but it was done in Japanese as well. It says, "You must never fall for the words of this war maker. The front line he is talking about is a sea of fire. The Taiwan issue is China's internal affair and a problem to be resolved by the Chinese people themselves. It has no relation to any other country, including the United States, and there is absolutely no room for intervention or interference from them. War preparation over the Taiwan issue are futile, and any head that sticks out will simply be cut off." So essentially, he's threatened to cut off the head of the Japanese prime minister, also cut off the head of the Secretary of War in the United States. This guy clearly is so over the top with his rhetorics in terms of the threat. Now, this is no stranger, right, to this whole idea of Chinese aggression in the diplomatic front. And then if you really think about it, they never really follow through with what their threats are, because most of the time this is just empty threats, which I find it to be kind of hilarious because, people like this that post about how China's rise is peaceful, well, they got fact checked. So, for example, China's rise is not peaceful at all. China's rise included the involvement in the Korean War, involvement in the invasion of Tibet, involvement in Vietnam. There was a Vietnamese war. There was a border clash with Russia. So they're very much not a peaceful rise. Plus the existing South China Sea aggression, the constant provocation in the ocean around the Philippines, in Scarborough Shoal and others, the use of fentanyl as a precursor, obviously the precursor to fentanyl, to sell it to the cartels, which becomes a drug issue in the United States. The use of cyber warfare, right, hacking American infrastructure, the use of economic coercions, the fact that they literally launched a trade war against Australia because they questioned the origin of COVID, the use of biowarfare, right, the fact that the COVID-19 came from Wuhan. This is nothing of a peaceful rise. This is literally China is in a state of constant aggression, and also you have the whole diplomatic front that we were just talking about. Now, I I, I really think like there's no reason for the CCP to do this right now because they're just coming off the heel of trying to play nice with the US. But I also think because they can't appear to be so weak in the eyes of the Chinese population, they have to stir something up. So this seems like their yearly, almost like their yearly blow up or yearly spaz out, that kind of thing. Me and Nina still do con. Who's Nina? I don't know who Nina is. I went to China in April. Everything looks good from 5 feet, but once you look at it, nothing lines up. Everything is cheap. There's a big difference between made in China and made in China. I'm not so sure what that means in terms of made in China and made in China. Glad to see you're live. Enjoy your videos and info. Thank you very much. You watch my videos when you're sad? That's therapy? I'm glad it is therapy. I'm losing so much social credit. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think about this because they don't dare to do this against the United States. Uh, and I think every time that they've done a threat, it's usually towards Japan. Because so a little bit of the history on this, right? So diplomats in China, there's actually a great book on this. I forgot what the name was. Chinese diplomats book. It's called The Wolf Warrior. Oh yeah, China's civilian army. If you guys are interested in reading about Chinese diplomacy or Chinese diplomats, there's a great book on this. It's called China's Civilian Army: The Making of Warrior Diplomacy. It's written by Peter Martin, who is a reporter for the Bloomberg, or is it for the Wall Street Journal? I can't remember. But he wrote this extensive guide on the history of the Chinese diplomats. So a bit of a history on this. So during the Mao Zedong era, because Mao and all of his comrades came from like peasants and countryside culture, and Mao was really about this very aggressive, very vulgar, very over the top mannerism. He encouraged people to say vulgar things. He encouraged people to make things as blunt as possible. That was his way of converting everyone into that like low down culture, right? Which actually I'm having a video on this soon explaining this. But the way you need to look at it is that the first diplomats in China weren't career officials who worked in foreign policy or people who knew things like diplomacy inside and out. They were literally like, if you put some thugs and thieves into positions of power and gave them suits and dress shirts, that's essentially what started out as the Chinese diplomacy. So the only way they knew how to get things done was to threaten people. And then it got toned down a little bit during like the 2000s and the 2010s until she came back into power, and Xi Jinping was very much into the whole wolf warrior diplomacy. He was very much into the Mao culture, so he got people to go back on those aggressive tones, and that's where we are today. So essentially you have all these people, and this is the reason that they could say things like, I'll chop your head off, or anybody that threatens us is going to be met with, head on stuff, whatever. That is straight out of Xi's words, like his dictionary. So this is something that they commonly say within the diplomacy circle inside the Chinese foreign ministry. Japan did a lot of messed up stuff in the past across Asia. Yeah, I agree. Japan did do a lot of stuff. That was Imperial Japan. It is not Japan today. Japan today is very much a democratic country. It has no intention of dominating the world. And so if you continue to care about stuff that is from, almost 180 to 90 years ago, that is not how you're supposed to run the world today. Because if we're talking about that, well, 80 to 90 years ago, we should really look at what happened in China. Well, it turns out in China, there was also stuff that happened throughout thousands of years of, say, people killing their own people, or even within the CCP's history, there were murders of way more Chinese people by the hands of Mao than that had happened during the Japanese invasion. So if you're talking about the sheer number of atrocities committed against the Chinese people, the CCP has a higher number of people killed than the Japanese did. So if there's any reason to argue for history, I think the Chinese people should actually be blaming the CCP much more. And in fact, the CCP leaders openly thanked the Japanese for invading China because it gave them a window to grow. Because, during the Second World War, the resistance of Japanese invasion in China wasn't done by the CCP. It was done by the KMT. And so while the KMT was defending China, the CCP was living up in the countryside, growing opium and saving up their military forces to later on defeat the KMT. So if we're talking about who was really benefiting from the invasion, well, it turns out Mao Zedong was. Japan went from political empire to femboy empire. Chinese people should not forget the Nanking Massacre and Project 731 that Japan did China during World War II. Dude, okay, Nanking Massacre was bad, 731 was bad, but it doesn't mean that those are the only things that has happened to China in the past. Okay, just like how today you cannot blame the current generation of white people because of slavery that happened hundreds of years ago, right? You simply cannot do that because today, like today's Japanese people have no reason to have to put up with the guilt of Imperial Japan because, well, they personally have never done anything like that to the Chinese. And guess what? Japan actually tried to pay back in terms of the reparation on the invasion of China. So during the early years of the reform and opening up, actually they gave a lot of incentives to Chinese companies going to Japan to set up shop and to give them like low tax to no tax policies so that they can, it was almost like an indirect form of reparation payment, right? And then what they were met with was this consistent aggressive tone from the Chinese government. And so over time, this is honestly the CCP themselves. Like they built up this aggression over time and they have never stopped with it. My country is perfect. I'm not a chatty person. I just wanted to know I respect and enjoy your work. Contribute to shine the light on the corruption of the CCP. It's so important. Thank you. Thank you very much, Malbury. I don't live in China. I don't know why you think I live in China. Dude, by the logic of you needing to shun a country because of what they did in the past, I think we should all go back to the years of the, let's say, let's go back to the Roman Empire at its peak. So does that mean we should stop, we should alienate Italy, and we should alienate Britain because, yeah, like you guys mentioned, the UK, right, the British Empire was also doing some bad stuff. We should probably also cancel Belgium because King Leopold was doing some crazy stuff in Africa. We should also probably cancel, well, most of Europe, right? Western Europe, colonial Europe, France, Spain, Portugal, the Netherlands. Who else did all those? Denmark. Yeah, all those countries probably need to be canceled. We should also probably cancel China because China also was, but way before the colonial age, they were also doing some massive amount of slavery. In terms of, they trafficked. Well, they bought slaves from Korea. We should also cancel Korea, by the way, because Korea one of the longest period of slavery in the history of the world. We should also cancel places like Africa because Africans were enslaving their own population to sell to other parts of the world. We should also cancel places like Egypt, the Middle East, because there was a lot of issues with slavery, killings, all of those things. The entirety of the Ottoman Empire. Probably also, I would say on the list is, did I mention Korea? Yeah, I mentioned Korea. China needs to be canceled. All of Europe needs to be canceled. The Middle East needs to be canceled. Africa needs to be canceled. Australia probably needs to be canceled too. So every country, if you really think about it, going back to history, has had a period of terrible things done to them, or did to others. So in that sense, we should just cancel the entire civilization of humanity because humans cannot move on from the past. New Zealand on your list? What did New Zealand do? uh Dude, if you, okay, but like by going by that logic of what they did in World War II, like that's honestly just, it's such an old deflective way of using the excuse. Are you supposed to blame current problems in China on Japan as well? It turns out, by the way, I wanted to do the next topic, and this one I think is very interesting on the current state of China. So this is a five. Sorry, no, this is 2021. So this is a 500,000 yuan. Actually, no, this is $5 million. Sorry, 5 million yuan. Property, 2 bedroom, one living room, 2 bedroom, one bath. Yeah, 2 bed, one bath in Beijing. So this is a 5 million yuan 2 bed, one bath unit in Beijing. In 2021, it got sold for it was asking for 5.35 million yuan. Now, fast forward to 2025, that same unit is now being sold for half. Now it's being sold for 2.46 million yuan. The 2.646 million yuan is how much? 2.46 million yuan is 345,000 USD. So in 2021, that unit was selling for about 700,000 USD. In 2025, it is selling for about $345,000. So half of it, right? So Chinese real estate, this is a data graph from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. I don't know why St. Louis is this, but just take a look at the price drop from Q3 of 2021. So 2021, the number of I guess you would say the property price in China was I think this is to the times 1,000, right? Is it? I don't really know what the number is adding up to. But you can see the trend line, right? The trend started out here. at the peak, which is 112.9908. I believe that's either 112,000 or 1,120,000. Either way, the trend line goes down. So it drops. Had a bit of a rebound in Q2 of 2023, but it continues to drop, and it's now down to about 90.6763. So from 112 down to 90, so that's a 30-point drop. Oh, there it is. Sorry. So I see it. Index 2010 equals 100. So yeah, so this will be $90,000. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, because $90,000 is somewhere around 400,000 yuan. So that makes sense. So yeah, median prices is 1.12 million down to about 90. So that's pretty insane. Thanks for the jewels. Thanks again for the jewels. Thanks again for the jewels. $2.4 million is the loss that less than, no, it's not $2.4 million, is 240,000. So wait, sorry, correction. 2.46 million yuan is $345,000. Are you allowed to do renovations on your house in China, or do you need to talk to the government to that? You can do renovations in your house, yeah. Oh, the wax body stuff, yeah, that was crazy. Official timeline for the invasion of Taiwan is somewhere in the 2027, 2028, but I don't think it's happening anymore. Chinese, the November 11th selling day 99 or whatever they call it, it was their worst sales call in 17 years at only 49 billion yuan, down to its peak of 498 billion yuan during COVID. Yeah, so yesterday or 2 days ago was something called 11/11, which is the Singles Day. So it was just a random holiday that got started by Alibaba, which is like China's version of the Amazon Day, right? Or China's version of the Black Friday, essentially. This year they had the worst sale in all of its recent history, and this is crazy because that's the day that is supposed to be the most number of purchases being made, I believe, in a single year, and it's now doing probably the worst than it's ever been. Because right now the Chinese military is in a state of internal chaos. I really don't think they can. They're ready to invade, politically. So, anyways, I wanted to show you this because this is now the situation with the Chinese real estate, right? From the current price point, which is, again, I'll try to show you here. The asking price at the last time, which was 2021, August 30th, 2021, was 5.35 million yuan, which is about 700,000 USD for a 2-bed, 1-bath. The same unit in 2025 is being asked to be sold at 2.46 million, which is around 345,000 USD. Then this is around the same time period because this is now September 27th, 2025. The exact same unit, no change to that, right? So that is 4 years, half of the real estate property price drop. And then when you go to some of the data, shows you Q3 of 2021, which is actually the same time as the house that's asking to be sold, August, which is Q3. Houses were selling at 1.12 million, down to about 90,000. Sorry. Oh my God, I can't with these numbers. 112,000 down to 90,000. Okay, so that is about a 30% drop over the span of 4 years. If you read some of the news reports on this, So, such as this one here, Reuters reports that China's new home prices fall at fastest pace in 11 months, which is insane to me. Says China's new home prices fell at the fastest pace in 11 months in September, worsening the property sector's drag on broader economic growth as policymakers struggle to revive the flailing economy, flailing market. So new home prices fell 0.4% month on month, following a 0.3% fall in August, according to calculations by Reuters based on National Bureau of Statistics data released on Monday. Year on year, prices fell 2.2% in September versus a 2.5% drop in August. What was I showing you? Here's a graph from the Reuters report. So 2023, this for them, this was the prolonged downturn. But you see how in 2021, this is Q3, that price was going up and then it started to come down, which actually is the same data as this portion here. The same data, it's just that Reuters has a slightly different graph. That's all. But at the bottom here, which I don't know why it didn't show, but this is Q4 of 2024. It had a slight rebound to now it is dropping, but also a little bit better than before, but it's still pretty bad. Secondary homes price slid 3.2% year on year in tier 1 cities, 5.0% in tier 2, and 5.7% in tier 3. So this essentially is telling us that 30% of the Chinese economy, which is real estate, is in shambles. So for people that say, oh, look, China's economy is doing so great, like Hassan Piker is saying that China is some Soviet era buildings with Gucci stores next to it, it's just insane because on the surface, it still looks really good. But one of the reasons why the CCP is caving to the US is because of this. Their economy is so trash right now. Tofu construction, no, there's more reasons than just tofu construction. I think a lot of it just has to do with terrible policies. Yeah, I did a video on the bridge collapse. Well, I hope nobody believes Hassan. Let's take a look at the 11th day sale. China's Singles Day stumble as frugal shoppers shrink the world's biggest sale. China's biggest shopping festival, equivalent of Black Friday in the US, saw a 14.2% increase in sales year on year, according to a report by Chinese Consumer Research. But this is slower than the 26.6% year on year growth in 2024. So it's still a drop. And this year, they recorded about $238 billion in sales across all platforms, making a 14.2 jump year on year, according to Chinese consumer research firm Sinton. And that's slower than the 26.6 year on year growth last year. So even though it's still making sales, but it's still lower than last year. And home prices continue to drop. So it's really not a good look on China right now. Real estate accounts for about 30%. I would say much higher because there's a lot of hidden attachments to real estate. For example, when you buy a home, you're getting a mortgage, right? You also have the attachment to the local government, which essentially is that the land that they lease to the contractor to create those apartments, that land needs to be paid off by the contractors to the government. So if those homes aren't being bought or homes aren't being sold, then the land like the government can't make money essentially. What did you type? Why is religious in this conversation? Because we were talking about how people are being canceled across the world because of previous historical atrocities. I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that. Um, the Wait, what do you mean by Asia Free Radio? You mean Radio Free Asia? RFA? Is it really so strict in China? I got so many friends on Telegram and Discord. Well, technically, you're not supposed to use those apps, right? Because you have to do so through VPN. But most people use VPNs anyways, because as long as you don't get caught, you're okay. Yeah, RFA. Okay, yeah, you're talking about RFA. Yeah, I was like AFR. Reminder, Zhang, that China donated $2.4 million to the Philippines as an aid for the people who were affected by the typhoon. It's connected to their peaceful rise. Well, money, donations, and all those things are supposed to be for that, to buy influence, right? So China's given a lot of money to like island nations in the Micronesia, Polynesia, Pacific Island nations, and those countries, well, they in turn speak on behalf of China. But at the same time, they can be aggressive to other countries. What's the main topic? I'm confused. We were talking about the threats made to the Japanese prime minister, but we moved on to China's real estate sector. Okay, we're gonna end the stream right here, and I'll see you guys next time. I have to go and make some videos, so hope you guys check out those, and thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.